So my name's Daniel Green. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Wikistrat, and we are the world's first massively multiplayer online consultancy, and we do crowdsourced consulting. And a big part of that is gamification. So what I'm going to talk to you about for the next 20 minutes is I'll give you a very brief overview about what Wikistrat is and the work that we're doing, and then I'm going to share with you 4 key insights that we've gotten from the very specific challenge of trying to get people from diverse backgrounds and experience to collaborate together on projects. So, what is a crowdsourced consultancy? Well, Wikistrat specializes in projects around geopolitics and national security. We leverage a unique methodology for crowdsourcing that allows us to bring together a vetted network of approximately 1,000 subject matter experts. They conduct online studies, war games, strategic forecasting exercises. They run simulations to look at the future of complex strategic issues. Essentially what we do is we use something called collaborative competition to have a large network of people break into ad hoc groups and start to work on a problem where they can break it down and generate scenarios, strategies, policy options, and insights, still keeping some sort of significant rigor. Mostly our clients are governments and multinational corporations who want us to look into the future and bring unique insights that only come from a diverse group of experts looking into an issue. Effectively, what we're able to do by leveraging crowdsourcing is often deliver a project at about a third the speed of traditional consulting, about a third the price of traditional consulting and about 5 times the speed. So we'll get into the network of analysts in a minute, but essentially what we're doing, and I apologize, this isn't so easy to see, we're bringing a pool of vetted subject matter experts together on an online platform that heavily uses gamification, and we're using 2 types of reward mechanisms for when they come together. So the first thing we do is when we're commissioned by a client to look into an issue, we're dividing up a portion of the money amongst each analyst as their minimum revenue guarantee. We're giving an approximate number of hours that we'd like the analyst to invest each week, usually about 10 hours, so that works out to be, say, 2 hours on a Monday morning and 1 hour on a Tuesday afternoon. We fit around people's schedules, they work remotely. And we ask them to consider that the minimum revenue guarantee is the only money that they are promised to take from this engagement. But a large financial, cash pool has also been put aside that will also be awarded to the analysts. And for those who go above their minimum commitment, we'll be asking the client for some of the insights that they found really innovative, that they hadn't thought of before, and we'll make a cash payment to each analyst who was involved in that scenario. And we'll look at the analyst which provided the most mentoring in a simulation, and we'll make a cash payment to them as well. And so what ends up happening is that people are interacting with our system for multiple reasons. But one of the reasons why they're sometimes willing to increase their time above and beyond the 10 hours we've asked them to put aside is the understanding that they may still be remunerated for that time, even though that remuneration is not guaranteed. So let's think for a minute about the network. In order to make something like this happen, we need to find a group of people who are geographically dispersed in as many different countries as we can find, that have different backgrounds. Some of them are retired generals and admirals. Some of them are politicians. Some of them are academics. Some of them are captains of industry, and some of them are master's students, PhD candidates and postdocs. And so the first thing which we need to do in order to bring this community forward is find a way to sort the different members of the community so that we can better understand how they work together. And for those of you who are aware of, for example, Gabe's model of SAPs, status, access, power, stuff, really what you need to do is you need to understand the diversity in your community and then start to look for the components that can bring them all together and make sure that you sort them accordingly. So really, whether you're talking about someone who's currently involved in military and is used to their status being displayed on their collar, or someone who's used to being in academia and is used to their status being displayed around their neck, you can start to see that there are actually some pretty common similarities in the way people in many different disciplines already sort themselves and display their rank and their status in real life. So in order to join our network, analysts have to submit a writing sample, they have to submit a CV, they have to pass a face-to-face interview, they have to engage in one of our simulations in order to demonstrate their capability. And so from the very beginning of their interaction with us, what we're actually doing is building a sense of community. We're building a sense of purpose. We're building a walled garden in which everyone feels like they have gone through something in order to belong. And then what we've started to do is we've started to try and understand the similarities between all the different worlds they come from and realize that there's often a lot of crossover between business life, military life, and academic life. So what that means is we need to bring that forward and bring that onto a platform where people who will never actually sit in the same room as each other have as many opportunities as possible to earn status and recognition, display that to each other, and really build a sense of community amongst the different projects they work from. And so from that, I would tell you that the most fundamental lesson that we've learned at Wikistrat is that the first thing you should do when thinking about how to gamify your experience in a community where your users are not customers, but they're in fact providers, is to say, what do we think our users would want from us? What are the sorts of things we would need to provide? What are the sorts of motivations that would actually matter to them in order for them to feel willing to engage in us? Because if we simply start with the end goal of saying we want our users to contribute more content, then we're going to fundamentally skew the experience in a way that favors us but potentially neglects them. But what happens when you have people from different countries with different cultural backgrounds? More importantly, what happens when you would like someone who is a retired 4-star general to come together and work with an intern or a master's student on the other side of the planet with fundamentally different goals, but you still want them to feel like they're on a level playing field and working on the same task? Well, for us, it's really a case of understanding that in order to achieve an objective, people can be motivated by completely different ideas. For example, some of the more senior members of our community are often much more motivated by the opportunity to show leadership or to be a mentor. And that's fine if what engages someone to work on an analytic product is the opportunity to be a mentor to the junior members of that engagement. That's fantastic, because the junior members of the engagement might be motivated by exactly complementary ideas. Maybe what they're looking for is networking, is for the opportunity to actually collaborate on a project with someone who they used to only read about in a university textbook. Sometimes we understand that people are motivated by money, and that's okay as well. After all, we're making commercial transactions here. But what's really important to understand about the concept of motivation is that if you can find a way of providing what motivates all the different analysts, you can still have people work together on the same task. Just because they're coming at a problem from different angles doesn't mean that they're not still meeting your own objectives. So one of the other things that we learned when actually putting together the gamification system, and I think this applies to almost all gamified systems, is people who grow up playing games as children get really used to the idea of a referee. And it's really hard in every country and every culture to tell someone that they've earned points or badges or a rank, potentially at the expense of someone else, without feeling like there's someone to complain to. So, interestingly enough, the lesson that we've learned here is that when people receive rewards and recognition as part of their overall experience, one of the first things we should do is always try and put a human face on that whole experience. For example, the emails you receive from the gamification engine at Wikistrat all come from SIA. SIA actually stands for System Information Administration, but we've given the game system a name. We've made sure that staff members read the emails back to SIA. We've given people the opportunity to complain to the referee and to feel a human connection. So it's not that some script is giving you a few points and that's the end of it. Either be motivated or don't be motivated. We're done. We're giving people always the opportunity to feel like they're inside the game, that they can turn to the referee on the sidelines, that they can ask to appeal a decision. I remember a very senior naval officer at the start of his time with Wikistrat took one look at the points system every time he logged in, and he sent us an email saying, "I really wish there was a way to turn the points system off. I don't find it engaging. I don't find it motivating. In fact, quite frankly, I feel like you're treating me like I'm a child." Of course, it was not 3 weeks before the second email that said, "I've reviewed the number of points that SIA awarded me for my work last night, in conjunction to one of my colleagues. He didn't beat me at Harvard, and he's not going to beat me at Wikistrat. I demand to speak to the referee. So with an extension of that, at Wikistrat, gamification is something we use in order to get people to do work. And work isn't always exciting, and it isn't always interesting, even though there might be components of it. So one of the other key lessons we've taken is that you can't turn absolutely everything into a game. And if you're going to, it at least needs to be congruent with what people are working on. I'm sure you've all heard case studies in the past about how a company has produced a Flappy Bird clone in order to sell pizzas. And people may have engaged with the game, but at no point have they gone, wow, that game was particularly fun, I really want to eat a pizza. By the same token, you can't always gamify getting people to eat their vegetables or brush their teeth. I know a few of you will jump up and say that there are games for both. But I think it's okay in a gamification environment to say to people, these are the tasks you have to work on. And you'll get 1 point every time you work on the task. But if you want 5 points, you're going to have to go above and beyond. If you want 10 points, you're going to have to volunteer to be part of a special project. You need to sometimes understand this is the job in which people are paying you for, and whether you like it or not, it's part of the regular churn of your work. So what you should do is you should try and find opportunities for additional engagement. So to show you a screenshot from inside one of our simulations, we've tried to create the feel and environment that people at home can still feel like they're coming into a briefing so that they can do work. We've tried to create an environment that feels fun and engaging, but by the same token, what we've really aimed to do at the same time is make them understand that it's still a work environment, that we can't put badges and stickers and prizes and points everywhere. So we've found the areas where we can congruently motivate and reward people, and the areas where they understand it's just the churn of doing their work. And so the last thing I want to share with you that came out of the system work we did, and this is probably one of the most interesting to me, it's understanding that in order to try and create enjoyment from the mundane, one of the things you can do is add surprise and delight. I'm sure most of you have heard that term. The idea that a user is rewarded for an activity that they weren't expecting to be rewarded for, or more importantly, that the rewards are variable. So one of the most important functions of our reward algorithm is it's not consistent in how it rewards you. There's a few mechanisms in there. Certain things have a diminishing rate of return. That's to try and stop people from getting too addicted and working all day. Maybe the first 5 times you do analysis, you get 5 points. Then after that, it drops to 4 points. Then after that, it drops to 3 points. We don't really put it in your face. We just have mechanisms in there to rate limit. We have things to try and stop people from gaming the system. You can't come in, do 500 actions on Monday, and then walk away, because otherwise we're not really going to get the benefit of a crowd interacting with each other. But it's really interesting because when you're inconsistent, that's when people demand to speak to the referee more than others. And in fact, probably the number one question of the tech team at Wikistrat has always been, why won't you transparently give us the algorithm? Why won't you tell us exactly what the point system is? And that's really hard because everyone's motivated by different things, and some people are directly motivated by receiving their awards, receiving their badges. And so they don't necessarily appreciate when they get the special badge because they weren't expecting it, and they're happy, but when they don't get a special badge for the next activity, they've almost come to expect things. So as much as surprise and delight is a really powerful tool, I would say one of the lessons we've learned is that it can be a really complicated psychological experience for the users who want surprise and delight when it's positive, but then suddenly expect it to be there the next time round and will get upset when it's missing. One of the more interesting components of that is, as I said, we give prizes to the analysts each month. And analysts will sometimes actually go and review the backlog of all the different projects we've paid for in the past because they want to understand how they can win money, how they can not even necessarily game the system, just maximize their benefit. And so we originally introduced prizes as one extra level of motivation, one extra mechanism for returning money to the community and keeping people engaged in the platform. But for any number of our users, that becomes something that they really focus on and they almost obsess over in wanting to know how they can make sure that they get prize money next month because they got prize money last month. how they can speak to the referee, how they can make sure that the prizes keep coming in, without appreciating that in a growing community, prizes are always just that. They're something that can be won and something that can be earned, but something that can never be guaranteed. So really, those are 4 lessons that I wanted to share with you from the various projects that we've done at Wikistrat. Gamification has been a truly powerful tool of engagement. I think a lot of our users are very surprised when they learn that you can embed gamification into a work task without it feeling fake, without it feeling incongruent, without it feeling tacky or somehow just plastered onto the experience for no good reason. But once it starts to become a part of their everyday process, once it starts to become a part of how they interact and they view their experience with you, they become very attached to those processes. And you have to start to be very careful how you modify those processes and when and how you change the rules, because they'll start to take those things very personally. And that's why the last of the elements I want to come back to is the idea of a human face. For those of you who are embarking upon gamification projects, you really should consider having a legitimate human face to your systems, so that when people do feel slighted by an algorithm and they send an email to say it's not fair, a human being responds rather than, sorry, you've reached no reply at ourcompany.com. Better luck next time.